Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Bom dia, meu povo lutador. Mestre Sukud here with another entry in, I guess, my path of capoeira, my cup of coffee, and I'm hoping that to share a couple of insights into capoeira that I've had recently. Well, not recently, but I think about, right? So, what do I want to talk about today? Here's the one thing we do have to remember. I guess it's my disclaimer. These are my opinions. People have their own opinions, and whether I like them or not, I respect that. Doesn't mean I have to agree. It doesn't mean that I have to say if someone's doing something obviously wrong, that I have to say, oh, that's okay. This is a part of character and a part that I feel maybe myself, I grew up with a little bit of a hard life, that it's really hard for me to just excuse people for doing whatever they want. And especially if I know it's wrong. But again, it's an opinion. There's no absolutes in anything. So, what I want to talk about this week is a few things to keep in mind in the Roda. As I talk about these, I'm going to give examples of why I see it this way. You don't have to agree. And there are a lot of fantastic mestres, instructors, and people doing capoeira that do things differently. They're not wrong. This is how I just saw some things. And like I said, always food for thought. So first I want to say is on my wall over here, I don't know if you guys can see, I have a giant sign. And this sign says, "Você tem que correr atrás." Which means in Portuguese, you have to chase after it. Which basically means you're responsible for your own progress and growth. One thing that happens a lot, and this is very endemic to Japanese culture, I think. I don't know if it's just Japanese culture, but something we see here that's highly valued is called tatemae, which means don't make waves. Don't criticize other people. Let people get away with anything, basically. And unfortunately, in this modern society, a lot of times that happens. Personally, I can't do that. So I'm going to give my opinion on what I think. You don't have to agree. Everybody has their own opinion. What am I basing this on? 20 years of living in Japan, speaking the language, and my second master's degree here. I had to study heavily on contemporary Japanese society at Waseda University. So I would say my teacher or the person who chaired my thesis is one of the foremost experts on contemporary Japanese culture. And we did a lot of work. So I'm gonna, like I said, it's always, my background always has a strong academic background mixed with, of course, personal opinion. So take it as you like it. I'm hoping that it shares. And maybe it'll affect other people how they do things too. So what I want to talk about right today is Conciencia da Roda, consciousness of the Roda. To be aware of the Roda, one thing that I love my adopted country. I've been here for 20 years, and I see myself here long term and not really moving back or anything. Wonderful wife who's Japanese and children, and a great system that has only given me an ample opportunity to grow as a capoeira and as a business person. One expression we have here, I know people are going to laugh. I know people are going to lose it, but I want to try to keep on point. There's an expression here called KY. It means kuki yomenai, like can't read the atmosphere or can't read what's going on. And we have to be careful to make that an excuse. For example, anywhere in the world when you're doing capoeira, because you don't know something, automatically it's somebody else's fault. You weren't told, or I wasn't told, oh, I didn't know. Oh, você tem que correr atrás. You have to chase after information. As an instructor, I realize more and more, I really don't know what my students know because fortunately I have a few students that they come at different times and I don't know exactly what each person knows. I'm doing my best always, but sometimes students need to ask what they don't know. As a capoeira, your first and foremost thing to do is to ask, to chase after information, to discover, to research, to learn about capoeira. Not from one source, but from as many sources as you can. Capoeira is an incredibly vast cultural, physical, musical, historical, magnificent thing. And you have to investigate. And it's your responsibility to investigate, nobody else's. No one can spoon feed you capoeira. So, roda is something I think is very important. A lot of times what I see when I'm traveling is people don't understand one simple concept, especially when I'm traveling in Asia. Capoeira is built on Brazilian cultural politeness. Yes, there's problems, yes, everything, but simple things like shaking hands, and you see people hugging at the rodas, you see kindness. I'm not going to get into what is Brazilian politeness, but I do want to say is in the roda, one thing that I love, it's what creates that Brazilian style that creates that amazing axé and feeling that you cannot separate from capoeira. First, in capoeira, you cannot make excuses. You cannot point the fingers at others. You cannot say, oh, I didn't know. Like I said, you are responsible. And if you take this, you'll enrich yourself so much more in capoeira. You'll enjoy the experience so much more. I highly recommend it. Now, one thing I do want to talk about the roda, and I hope this is just kind of food for thought, that you guys can maybe understand when you're at the roda. These are just points, technical decorum. So when we're doing the roda, we only change one instrument at a time. I was at a roda, and what happened? People are not paying attention. They're not reading the atmosphere. They're not seeing what's going on. And half the instruments were changed from hands to hands in the middle of the roda, and the music just went boom. Not that the music was going very good to begin with, but it just went down. You can't change two panderos, two berimbaus at the same time. I'm sure that's just common sense. So what I do is I just change one instrument, and I make sure people, when they change the instruments, they're moving in and out on the music, not just finishing halfway through a rhythm. Don't, 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 don't. Pass it. Don't, don't. Keep the energy going. This is really important. I've said this many times, but I really believe the music of capoeira is the audio representation of axé, of everything we are as capoeira. This is why the music and singing and the songs are so important. I cannot stress how important these things are. So we're going to change only one instrument at a time. Now, there's a couple of expressions that, as I'm traveling, people mangle the expressions or don't use the expressions correctly, and that happens a lot. If you lived any time, long time in Japan or in Korea, this is not a bad thing. This is just how cultures or countries import foreign words, okay? For example, we know in Japan we have a lot of Japan English. We call that Japan English. And it's a common joke, but it's also something people study. So, for example, going to a roda and people just go, comprar. Like, yes, I understand, but maybe you could put a little extra effort and say, Mestre, dá para comprar o jogo. Comprar o jogo, dá para entrar. A simple phrase is a lot more easy to understand than just shouting a word. We should all know the pé do berimbau, the foot of the berimbau, and of course, volta do mundo. These are three simple things that are kind of endemic to all capoeira rodas. I mean, can you imagine no pé do berimbau, no foot of the berimbau, nobody doing volta do mundo, or not knowing how to cut into a game or comprar o jogo? Like I said, all this is your responsibility. If you don't know, you have to ask. You have to chase after the information. So, things that I try to keep in mind when cutting into the roda, because once the roda begins, The ashe is generating. It's moving. We can't break the ashe. And this happens a lot because people aren't connected or they don't know how to maintain it. This is how I see maintaining the roda and its ashe. First, when you cut into the roda, be aware of the game that's going on before you cut in. What I see a lot is people really not paying attention and cutting in because they want to play. They don't want to play in the roda, they want to play. Does that make sense? Their personal desire to get in the roda and move and do and not really pay attention, and many times not even looking and jumping into the roda when a game's flowing really well or in the middle of an acrobatic movement or basically with no sense of what's going on prior to them entering the roda. So you need to pay attention before you go into the roda. You need to become part of the energy before you enter the capoeira. For me, always was go to the roda, ask if, clap, sing, then ask, may I play an instrument? Ask, may I play an instrument? You're visiting someone else's roda, or you're going to a roda that's not, you're not the dono da roda or the dona da roda, the person who organized the roda, then you need to be polite and ask. You can't just assume you can do whatever you want. I know it's common sense, but it happens a lot more than people think. Don't break the flow of the roda. When you cut in, keep the rhythm going. Doom, 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 doom. Don't just cut. Buy the game. Who wants to buy something that's not flowing, that's not working? So when you buy the game of capoeira, get in, be smooth, be swing, on it. Be careful, people are moving. Pay attention to the game that you're about to interrupt or become part of. That's the key. Are you interrupting or are you becoming part of it? You need to become part of it, and you'll enrich yourself and enrich the capoeira roda even more than it is at that moment. When you cut, or when someone puts you, gets in front of you and takes your position in the roda, or two people come in, for safety, pay attention. Shake hands, move out, looking at what's going on. I see so many people literally just giving their backs and walking out of the roda. That's it. I'm just going to say that. People give their backs and walk out of the roda. Not to mention, and it's rude, but it's also dangerous because you have no idea what the next two people are doing. People need to play the rhythm of the berimbau. I was at a roda of someone I really, really like and love a lot and respect. And it went into, they said, okay, let's play Angola to restart the roda because we took a break. So people were just, the Angola started off really slow, middle of the ladainha, and people were just crazy, crashing into each other and doing just everything. Remember, it's your responsibility. There's enough information out there now that you can check. Play on the rhythm. It just makes sense. Okay. If you have somebody visiting, for example, a mestre, contramestre formado, in my case, I get a lot of musicians, professional Brazilian musicians who are fantastic musicians and have a very good sense of adding good music to the roda. Be polite. When people visit you and bring good ashe and good quality, welcome them and let them play. For example, I was at an event and the person, I said, can I play I think it was the pandero or the berimbau, I don't remember. They were literally out of the rhythm and out of the timing of the music. And by no means am I an expert at music, but I know a basic 1, 2, 3, 4 count from music. And I've recorded 3 CDs, so I've had a chance to learn a lot how music works, and hopefully I've improved. And the person just looked at me and said, no, 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 I want to do. And I thought to myself, okay, maybe I'm wrong, maybe they're right. But I can't remember myself ever being discourteous to someone like that. I say, I give people a try. If I know they can't do it, then I will say, because I've told students, I go, look, no, hold on. The music's going this way. You don't have that level. Hold on, and we'll work on it later. Not putting down, but not letting somebody who wants to do something when they don't have the ability. I'm not going to let somebody who doesn't have the ability right now to do a backflip do it because they're going to get hurt. So we can't hurt the Roda. If someone's visiting, try to be polite, try to be kind, be welcoming. If they can do it. If you don't know, look to your instructor. If they don't know, if you don't know, ask. There's nothing wrong with asking. People seem to have this fear of asking as it devalues their status or something. Ask. I ask. If I don't know something, I email another master or somebody who knows, and I ask. Half the time, they don't know either, so we all grow together learning. There's nothing wrong in asking. Also, one thing that I noticed that's really important too is when the Roda's over, help clean up. Nothing builds team or Capoeira Roda or energy or camaraderie more than if people just simply share energy in putting away our sacred instruments, berimbau, atabaque, agogô, reco-reco, whatever, pandero, whatever you have at your Roda. I mean, clean up together. You'd be surprised all the little conversations and all the enriching experiences you can have just by doing together. So many people just walk off, and that makes you look like a client. That makes you look like a player of capoeira, but not someone who's a capoeirista. Set up to finish, capoeirista, you have to chase after information, and you have to be part of the Roda. 101%. What's going on, when to cut, everything I've talked about. So I hope this video helps a little bit. These are things just to keep in mind. Like I said, you don't have to agree. These are things that I keep in mind, and I hope that it makes me a better person when I participate in a Roda. I'm not criticizing. I'm giving examples. I'm building up. There's a difference between that. When we critique and we build up to improve, not to attack, then we are growing. And our beautiful art of capoeira only gets better. Ashe. And I hope this video helps a little bit. And here we go.